There are certain moments in this life when a person walks into your world, and the very idea of coincidence simply vanishes. You can spend your time trying to break down the timeline and using cold logic to explain the sequence of events, but your heart already knows that reason was never the one steering this ship. This individual did not just drift into your reality by accident. They arrived with a clear purpose, and from the second they appeared, a tectonic shift occurred deep within your spirit. It was silent, but it was permanent. Even now, when you try to turn the page and convince yourself that the chapter is finally closed, and you try to intellectualize the distance between you, there is still a powerful gravity that pulls your focus back to them. It does not pull with the desperation of someone who is lost. It pulls with the weight of absolute recognition. If these words have found their way to you today, it is because this was always meant to happen. Significant signals in life always arrive at the exact moment when the soul is finally ready to translate them. There is an old idea that looking outward is just dreaming, but looking within is where we truly wake up. At this very second, something at your core is beginning to stir. It is a deep internal knowing that rejects silence, and it is a sensation that insists this bond was never meant to be easily scrubbed from your memory. You may have reached that difficult crossroads where you feel completely divided. You are caught in the tension between holding on tight and finally letting go. You are torn between trusting the intensity of what you feel and doubting yourself because of the reality you see in front of you. Silence has a dangerous way of amplifying our doubts. Distance can make even the most confident heart question its own truth. You might have wondered if you simply imagined the depth of it all. You might have asked yourself if you projected meaning onto a situation where none actually existed. But if it were just your imagination, it would have faded away long ago. Illusions always dissolve when they are tested by the passage of time. This did not fade. Your soul refuses to let go of this person, and that refusal has a valid reason. Time has not weakened it. Pain has not destroyed it. Every single attempt to disconnect has not brought you freedom. Instead, every time you tried to walk away, it seemed to loop you right back to that same quiet realization. This person matters, and they do not matter in the way your ego wants them to matter. They matter in the way your soul recognizes as essential. This is not about some loud or anxious obsession that demands attention. What you are experiencing is much quieter and much deeper than that. It lives beneath all the noise of your daily thoughts and expectations. It waits patiently in the background. It surfaces during moments of perfect stillness and in the middle of your dreams and in sudden waves of emotion that hit you without any warning at all. It is the feeling of a story that has not finished its meaning. When you first met this person, something ancient inside of you woke up. It was not just basic attraction. It was not just that you were compatible on paper. It was a strange sense of familiarity that existed even though you had no memories of them before this lifetime. The conversation might have been perfectly simple, but the energy behind it was anything but simple. Your nervous system recognized a sense of safety and a sense of intensity at the very same time. That specific paradox is incredibly rare, and it leaves a permanent mark on your consciousness. Meeting another person is often like two chemical substances coming into contact with each other. If there is a reaction, both substances are fundamentally changed. You have been changed by this, and whether you can see it or not, they have been changed by you too. Connections that alter our trajectory are never casual. They rearrange the architecture of our inner world. They open doors that can never be shut again. Even now, in the distance and in the silence, they feel your presence more than they show. Some people process their emotions internally and have a hard time expressing them outwardly. Others do the complete opposite. Silence does not mean the absence of feeling. Sometimes silence just means there is way too much feeling and no clear place to put it. Your presence awakened something in them that they were not at all prepared to manage. Instead of leaning into the experience, they stepped back hoping that space would quiet down the things you stirred up inside of them. It did not work. Energy does not need words to travel. In their own quiet moments, when the distractions of the world finally fade away, you surface in their mind. This happens not because they necessarily want it to, but because the connection itself insists on it. They find themselves replaying past conversations. They remember exactly how you made them feel seen and heard. They notice the stark contrast between your energy and the emotional flatness of everyone else they encounter. That comparison unsettles them deeply. They are not acting distant because they do not care. They are acting distant because they care too much. There are massive battles happening inside of them. You were never meant to fight those battles for them. It involves old wounds and a fear of being vulnerable, and a fear of losing control, and a fear of being exposed at a depth they cannot handle yet. For some people, real love feels unsafe because of what it forces them to see about themselves. This is exactly where many of these connections fracture. One soul begins to wake up faster than the other. The other person resists the mirror being held up to them. You became that mirror for them. You reflected parts of their character that they had kept buried for years, and instead of rejecting you, they retreated from their own reflection. If we do not make the unconscious parts of our lives conscious, then those parts will continue to direct our lives, and we will just call it fate. Right now, they are being directed by the things they have not yet had the courage to face. But an awakening cannot be undone. You cannot unsee what you have already witnessed. You cannot unknow what you now understand. You entered their life to remind them of emotional truth and tenderness and authenticity. You reached a place inside them that had been asleep for a long time. That kind of touch does not just vanish. It lingers, and it reshapes, and it waits. The universe does not waste encounters like this. If this connection were only meant to end quietly, it would have happened naturally. Instead, it echoes in signs that catch your attention and in dreams that feel more real than your waking life. It echoes in the moments where their name comes to you without any effort. These are not distractions. These are signals. They are not telling you to chase them, but they are telling you to trust in what is unfolding beyond your control. There is a massive difference between forcing a door open and simply knowing that the door will open when the timing is aligned. Your exhaustion is completely valid. Loving someone deeply without having any clarity is a very heavy burden. But your hope is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of your intuition. Intuition does not scream at you. It waits for you to listen. Right now, something is shifting beneath the surface. It is not visible yet, but it is happening internally. The resistance is weakening. The fear is being challenged. The heart that was once closed off is slowly softening under the weight of its own truth. Whether they admit it or not, the idea of losing you forever is becoming much more frightening to them than the idea of trying again. This is not the end of your story. It is the pause before the understanding. It is the space where real growth happens and the silence where the alignment is preparing itself. You are not being asked to wait blindly. You are being asked to stay rooted in yourself and to remain open without ever abandoning your own balance. Patience is the ultimate key to joy. It is not a passive kind of patience, but a grounded one. It is the kind of patience that trusts the timing of the universe without sacrificing your own self-respect. It is the kind of patience that knows when something is truly real. It does not require any force. As these words settle into your mind, notice what resonates without any effort at all. The truth does not need to convince you of anything. It simply lands where it belongs. And if your heart feels calmer instead of more anxious, that is your confirmation. The connection is not broken. It is in the process of transforming. In this space of transformation, you are being shaped and molded just as much as they are. That is something the human mind often resists because the mind craves resolution and labels and rigid timelines. But the soul works in a different way. The soul uses uncertainty as a refining fire. It strips away all your illusions and dependencies and false expectations until only the raw truth remains. What you are experiencing right now is not just waiting, it is becoming. You may have noticed that since this connection entered your life, you are no longer the same person you used to be. Your emotional awareness has deepened significantly. Your standards have sharpened. You can no longer tolerate shallow connections or love that is only half present. Something inside of you refuses to settle for anything less than what feels aligned and safe and real. That is not a coincidence. That is the indelible imprint of a soul-level encounter. Sometimes a connection does not come into your life to stay immediately. Sometimes it arrives simply to awaken you first, to show you what is actually possible, and to reveal what your heart truly needs instead of what it was conditioned to accept. Once that awakening happens, you can never go back to sleep. Even if the person is absent, the truth they activated remains alive and breathing within you. This is exactly why letting go feels impossible right now. It is not because you are stubbornly clinging to a specific person, but because you are holding on to a truth about yourself that was born through them. You learned how deeply you are capable of feeling and how open your heart can actually be and how capable you are of true emotional presence and devotion. Your soul does not abandon its own expansion. You may also feel moments of doubt rising unexpectedly. You might think that if this was really real, it would be easier, or that if they really cared, they would show it more clearly. These questions are perfectly natural, but they come from the rational mind trying to measure something that does not operate on linear rules. Connections of the soul rarely follow straight paths. They move in complex spirals. They revisit the same themes at deeper levels, each time asking for more honesty and more courage and more integration. What complicates this connection is not a lack of feeling, but the simple timing of readiness. You are ready to open up, and they are still learning how to be present. Readiness is not something you can give to another person. It must be earned through their own inner confrontation. It is earned through facing the fears they have avoided for years, and through choosing to be vulnerable instead of constantly choosing self-protection. There are moments when they almost reach out to you. There are moments when your name is sitting on their lips, and moments when they sit with their phone in their hand, imagining exactly what they would say if they were brave enough to hit send. But fear always interrupts them. It is the fear of saying the wrong thing. It is the fear of not being enough for someone who feels like a mirror to their own soul. They are struggling with the intensity of the connection just as much as you are. The difference is that you have chosen to face the light while they are still learning how to step out of the shadows. Do not mistake their hesitation for a lack of love. It is a sign of their own struggle with their own limitations. You are the catalyst for their growth, whether they realize it or not. The impact you have had on them is permanent, even if they are currently trying to hide from it. Your task is not to fix them or to drag them into the light. Your task is to continue your own evolution and to hold your own space with grace. When you step into your own power, you stop being a person who is waiting for someone else to choose you, and you become a person who is fully grounded in your own truth. That is the most powerful position you can ever occupy. It creates a space where if they do choose to return, they will be returning to a version of you that is even more radiant and more authentic than the one they first met. Trust that the energy you have invested in this is not lost. It is part of your own expansion, and it is part of the unfolding of a larger story that is still being written. Keep your heart open, but keep your feet on the ground. Remain true to what you know in the quietest hours of the night. You are exactly where you need to be in this process of becoming. Let the silence be a teacher rather than a prison. You are growing and they are growing, and the universe is simply orchestrating the timing of it all. You are not losing your mind, and you are not living in a fantasy. You are simply experiencing the complex, beautiful, and often difficult reality of a connection that exists outside the bounds of the ordinary world. Embrace that depth and let it guide you forward with confidence. They are trapped by a fear of reopening something they do not yet trust themselves to handle. So they stay silent and they wait, hoping that the passage of time will solve a problem that can only be resolved by their own courage. And yet, time keeps bringing you back into their awareness over and over again. This happens because unresolved connections do not simply disappear into the void. They wait for us. They linger in the spaces between our thoughts. They resurface the moment that our daily distractions finally fade away. Late at night when the world is quiet, early in the morning before the rush begins, in the middle of conversations that feel hollow, or while they are in relationships that lack any real depth, you become the quiet comparison that they simply cannot ignore. This is also why signs seem to follow you so closely lately. These signs are not here to keep you stuck in a cycle of waiting, but to keep you steady in your own truth. When you start to doubt your own intuition, something always appears to remind you that you are not just imagining this. A song comes on that speaks directly to the story of your heart. A dream arrives where the conversation finally flows with ease and clarity. A sudden memory flashes in your mind, but this time it arrives with a sense of emotional peace instead of sharp pain. These things are not meant to pull you backward into the past. They are meant to anchor you firmly in the present moment through trust. Trust does not mean that you have to wait in a state of suffering. It means staying deeply connected to yourself while allowing what is meant to return to find its way back to you naturally. There is a subtle but incredibly powerful shift happening within you right now. You are finally learning the difference between simple attachment and true alignment. Attachment says that I need this person in my life to be okay. Alignment says that I am already okay on my own, and I trust that whatever belongs to me will meet me in the truth when the time is right. That shift changes the entire game. When you stop chasing clarity and start embodying it, the dynamic between you transforms energetically. Something inside of you loosens its grip. The heavy pressure finally lifts. The connection is no longer fueled by your anxiety or your fear, but by your grounded presence. And that is exactly the state in which a true and healthy reunion becomes possible. Because if they return to you while you are feeling depleted or while you are doubting your own worth, the connection would just repeat the exact same patterns of the past. But if they return when you are centered and self-honoring and emotionally whole, something entirely new can begin. Something that is healthier and something that is finally mutual. You are not being punished by this delay. You are being prepared. You are being prepared to receive love without having to abandon yourself. You are being prepared to recognize true effort instead of just chasing potential. You are being prepared to meet them not as someone who is desperately seeking validation, but as someone who is standing tall in her own worth. They feel this shift even if they do not have the words to name it. They can sense that you are pulling your energy back inward. They can sense that you are no longer waiting for them in the same way you once were. And paradoxically, that is exactly what makes the connection feel more real and more urgent to them, because now it is no longer guaranteed. It must be actively chosen. This is where fear begins to lose its grip, because the possibility of losing you completely becomes a real and tangible thing. And reality has a very sharp way of cutting through all the avoidance in the world. Their heart starts to speak louder than their defense mechanisms. Their memories of you begin to soften. Regret starts to surface. The desire for repair begins to grow. You may feel moments where you suddenly feel calm and almost detached, followed by waves of deep emotion. That is the feeling of alignment taking root. You are no longer fighting the connection, but you are no longer losing your own identity in it either. You are allowing it to exist without needing to control the outcome. That balance is an incredibly powerful thing. It signals to the universe that you are ready for the truth, whatever form that truth happens to take. And the truth always responds to our readiness. The path between you is not blocked, it is being cleared. Old misunderstandings are dissolving away. Internal resistance is weakening. What once felt chaotic and confusing is slowly reorganizing itself beneath the surface. You do not need to do anything else right now. There is no need for convincing, no need for explaining, and no need for proving your value. Just stay present. Stay honest with yourself. Stay open to the world without chasing after a specific person. The rest of the process is unfolding in its own perfect rhythm. And as this part of your journey continues, you may start to sense it more clearly. You will notice it not as a painful longing, but as a sense of quiet certainty. It is a knowing that does not beg for reassurance. It is a trust that does not need constant signs to believe. Something is moving toward a true alignment. It is not being rushed, and it is not being forced, but it is becoming real. There comes a moment when the longing finally softens into a deep understanding. This does not happen because the connection is weakening, but because your entire relationship to it is changing. You stop asking why this is happening to you, and you begin to sense that this is happening for you. That shift is subtle, but it is profound. It is the moment when your pain starts turning into wisdom. You are beginning to see that this connection was never meant to consume you. It was meant to reveal you. It was meant to strip away the things that were false and to expose where you had abandoned yourself in the past. It was meant to teach you the difference between intense attraction and true intimacy, between desperate attachment and healthy devotion, and between a beautiful fantasy and the solid ground of truth. And once that lesson begins to integrate into your life, the suffering loses its grip on you. You may notice now that your thoughts of them are changing. They are no longer frantic or desperate thoughts. They arrive gently, sometimes with warmth, sometimes with clarity, and sometimes with a calm acceptance that whatever unfolds must be rooted in authenticity rather than fear. This is a sign of the emotional maturity that is forming inside of you. And this is where the connection reaches a major turning point. Because when one person in a soul bond evolves, the entire dynamic is forced to respond. Energy always seeks a natural balance. When you stop chasing answers and start embodying them, the universe adjusts accordingly. What once felt completely stalled begins to move forward. What once felt confusing begins to organize itself. They are feeling this transition too. Even if they do not consciously understand why, your energy is no longer reaching them as a form of need. It reaches them as presence, and sometimes as an absence that speaks louder than any words could. It arrives as a calm strength that cannot be manipulated or ignored. And that fact unsettles them far more than any amount of pursuit ever could. Silence has a different meaning now. It is no longer a sign of rejection. It is a sign of processing. It is a confrontation with the self. They are being asked by life to look inward and to finally face the patterns they have relied on to stay safe for so long, such as avoidance, emotional distance, and control. These strategies once protected them from getting hurt. Now, they only isolate them from the love they actually want. There are moments when they feel the urge to return to you very strongly, followed by moments of intense hesitation. This inner push and pull is not really about you. It is about them standing at the very edge of their own growth. Stepping forward means risking vulnerability. Staying back means losing something that is genuinely real. That kind of internal tension cannot last forever. What is important for you to understand now is this. The outcome of this connection does not depend on how much you hope, but on how deeply you honor yourself. The more you stay aligned with your own truth, the clearer the path forward becomes. Whether that path eventually leads to a reunion or to a complete release, it will no longer be something that breaks you.